members of the Muslim Brotherhood in the U.S. have something to replace the Constitution with Sharia law. If you were elected, will you declare the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist organization and have the Department of Justice work to stop it working in the U.S.? The Muslim Brotherhood is a terrorist organization. Okay? I've read some of the founders of the Muslim Brotherhood, Sayyid Qutb, Hassan al-Banna. These are folks that are the ideological godfathers, if you will, probably not a good word to use in Muslim, in the Islamic world, of Al-Qaeda. Not just the Muslim Brotherhood, but these are folks who were very much part and parcel of this new radicalization. Now you notice I said new radicalization, because of course we've had, for history, lots of radical movements within Islam that has caused Islam to expand by the sword. And so this is a new chapter in that. For 200 plus years after the defeat at the Battle of Vienna. Anybody know where that was? When that was? What's that? Yeah, the Gates of Vienna. Anybody know what year that was? Yeah, the 1680s. And so it wasn't that long ago that Islam was on the gates of Vienna and was going to conquer Central Europe. And they were driven back, eventually, driven back and became, well, actually colonized by the West. Now think about this. Think about what this impact was to the Muslim psyche at the time and during this time. This was a religion that was the final revelation. This was a religion that was promised in this holy text that would, in fact, conquer the world, because it was the final revelation. And for 1,000 years, Islam spread. Mostly by the sword, but spread otherwise, but mostly by the sword. And in a matter of a couple of hundred years, it was thrown back, basically to the Middle East and North Africa, formerly Christian North Africa. And so here are these people, after 200 years of being promised by God that they were going to rule, and they were on a roll, and all of a sudden, they failed. And so a group of people came together, some of these guys at the Muslim Brotherhood, and said, well, we must be doing something wrong. We must not be faithful enough. We must not be orthodox enough. We need to be stricter when it comes to all of this Islam, because we have let down Allah, and that's why He is not allowing this to happen. And so you see these writings as people are stewing in the fact that the West is dominating. They're in colonies. They're being controlled by the infidels. I mean, just imagine the embarrassment on a culture, on a religion. That's the root of the Muslim Brotherhood. Okay, so you understand that. The root of the Muslim Brotherhood is that we need to regain our footing so we can fulfill what the Prophet told us is the destiny of Islam, which is to do you all a favor and force you to convert. Okay, that's a favor. They mean that. They sincerely believe that you're going to hell and that they're going to convert you for your own good. So that's why when you say it's a terrorist organization, their objective is to force everybody in the world into Islam. That's their objective. And we don't have politicians, of course, talk about this, because it's politically incorrect to talk about it, because Islam is a religion of peace. And of course, most Muslims are absolutely peaceful. But these folks are not. These folks have an agenda, and it's driven by a theology. They're not terrorists. They're radical Islamists. Terror is a tactic. It's not an ideology. This is an ideology. We need to understand the ideology. We need to understand the roots of it. We understand what the threat is to this country. And if we don't have someone who's willing to explain it to us, then you're not going to get the American public motivated to respond to the threat if they aren't aware of it. One of the things that I don't know the introduction, but Karen and I are the parents of 7 children. Okay, we homeschool. So what you'll see for me is, as I think you've seen, I think one of the most important roles as a president, other than commander-in-chief, is to be the educator-in-chief. And it's important for for a president to respect the people enough to tell them, not do what Obama does, pitch billionaires and millionaires against people who are poor and set up straw men and knock them down as he does on a regular basis. But engage the American public in an intelligent discussion of the issues that confront this country. I think you'll be surprised how America will respond. You're going to get beat up a lot, I anticipate it, by the media that doesn't really want to have that kind of discussion. But if you keep it up and you're honest with the American public, I'll give you one final story. Yesterday, I'm at the Value Voters Summit, and I'm doing a picture line. People are standing in line taking pictures with me. We just had a little coffee in the morning. And in walks a guy next to me. I look at him, I said, well, that guy looks familiar. I look down at his badge, and it's Barry Lynn. Does anybody know who Barry Lynn is?
Yeah.
Who's Barry Lynn?
Americans United for Separation of Church and State.
Americans United for Separation of Church and State. He's an atheist. He's the guy that sues all these folks and drives God out of the schools and everything. Barry Lynn.
Reverend Barry Lynn.
Reverend. So I look and I see Barry Lynn. I said, what are you doing here? He says, oh, I want to keep my eye on what the enemy's up to. And I said, well, that's it. I said, that's interesting. I said, you just waited 20 minutes in line to see me. He said, well, you don't want this picture. I said, yes, you're right. I don't want this picture. And I said, well, what are you doing here? He said, well, I just want you to know. He said that I've watched you over your career, because I've never met the guy. So I've watched you over your career. He says, and I don't agree with you on anything. I said, okay. He said, but you know what? You answer the question, and you're honest, and you say what you believe, and I respect you. Now, Barry Lynn, then he went on to talk about how mad he is with Obama not doing all the liberal things he wants him to do. I don't want Barry Lynn's vote, don't get me wrong. But there are a lot of people who aren't as radical as Barry Lynn, who say, you know what, I may not agree with the guy, but he's honest. He answers the question. And he respects me enough to be able to explain why he believes what he believes. If you want, people say, well, how are we going to get this country back together? How about starting with one thing? Respect.